Welcome to Business Beyond the Game. I'm your host, Eric Jackson, and we're joined by one of the brighter minds in the business, Wale Ogunleye, head of UBS Sports and Entertainment Division. Wale, how
Mhm.
are you, my friend?
I'm good, Eric. How are you, man? Good to see you again.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I appreciate you coming on. I just want to dive right into it because, I think we have a lot to get into on this one. And I don't think people know Wale, but you were team captain of the Chicago Bears during that memorable 2006 Super Bowl season. And I know it well because I have my own Chicago roots. And, Wale, how much do those leadership skills you built just during your career, how much are those applicable, you think, just in everyday life and in the business world?
I think definitely. When we're out, actually, when I'm canvassing through these universities and seeing these student athletes, I'm actually seeing future CEOs and future colleagues of mine that I think could do extremely well in corporate America. I think we've learned so much from the game of sport, especially team sport, where you have to work with other people for success. You got to work hard. You got to depend on each other, but more importantly, you got to lead, right? And a lot of the individuals, especially as you continue to go up into professional athletes, have always been alphas in their schools and in their communities. And having alphas being able to work together and to lead each other and to lead other alphas is huge. That's why having that C on my chest, it was really big, right? That means the organization looked at me and said, "Hey, with these other 60 guys who have always been alphas, we think you're the person to lead them." So for me, it's really great, and it transfers into corporate America, right? Knowing that I have thick skinned. Every play that I had when I played in sports was scrutinized from my hand placement to my feet to the things that I was thinking about during the play, and I think that does really well with having people that you have to report to, and they hold you accountable. So we look at it as athletes, and for me, as if someone's not actually talking to me or criticizing me, that means they might have given up on me. So I actually love criticism. I love feedback, constructive feedback, and for me, all those characteristics transfer extremely well into corporate America.
Absolutely. And for you, what advice do you give guys just who want to set themselves up post career? Wale, because I know former NFL guys who they couldn't even watch football right when they retired. Like they just it was just so hard to transition and just going through depression, other things. It's just tough. I mean, Wale. I mean, what advice do you just get guys who would just want to make a smooth transition? Because you jumped right into it, got the NBA, you did your thing. What advice do you give?
What's so crazy about that is when I stopped playing, I actually couldn't watch professional football for a long time too. I'm not sure. I just had a sick feeling in my stomach, but just something didn't feel right. I couldn't watch it as a fan because I was like kind of breaking down, like, oh, I would have done this, or I saw a mistake here. So we look at the game a little differently. We don't look at it as fans. So it's kind of hard just watching it at a casual afternoon with your family and friends, and everyone's downing beers and drinking. It took time. Now I enjoy it. I back like watching it. I'm a big fan of football again. But I would tell guys this, like, at the end of the day, I retired in my 30s, and I always knew there was going to have to be something else. So the good thing for me, which I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to educate myself on my finances, where I went back and got my MBA. The NFL had an amazing program where they would contribute to a continuing education. So I took advantage of that. And what was great about that was it put me back into a classroom. I was with other individuals. I kind of had that mentality of meeting again and learning new things.
Right.
It was a little different, going back to school and studying and doing tests and stuff like that. But it kept me in a forward movement. And I think what happens with a lot of guys when they retire and there's not a plan, that's where depression sits in. That's where abuse of alcohol and drugs start to come in. That's where a lot of guys start to gain weight because they're just sitting around depressed and feeling down about themselves, that they're no longer the man that they have always been the last 7, 8, 9, 10 years, maybe even 20 years of their lives. So I tell people always have a plan to find something to keep you moving, keep your mind engaged, and that's what I did with education. But for other people, maybe investing and finding out other things that you like or giving back philanthropically. But what I did was I kept myself in a constant movement. I always traveled from place to place. I had meetings with people. I didn't just sit on the phone. So I tell guys like I understand the main thing's the main thing. You want to focus on your careers. You want to focus on being the best football player or athlete or even entertainer that you can be, but still understand that you got so much more living to do when it's all said and done, and start getting your ducks in a row. So when it's all said and done, you're moving forward.
Yeah, and at UBS, you're definitely someone who's very familiar with financial advisors, and we've seen some of these headlines, right? Athletes being bamboozled and others. Like, how do you filter the good ones versus the bad ones, Wale? Like, how do I see so many guys, and they're you might be taken advantage of or manipulated. I'm just curious your thoughts on trying to pick the right one.
I think the first thing for me, which was really great, was after I got done with my MBA and I was able to speak the language somewhat decently with advisors,
Right.
I started scaring people away. Like when I would just ask a simple question like, "What's the basis point?" or "How many basis points are you charging me?" What's my rate of return on this? Have you vet this deal? Just certain key words that if an advisor now really doesn't have your best intentions, they're going to bail extremely fast. So that's a quick way to weed people out. Start learning the fundamental basics around your finances and the jargon that comes with your money. And then two, ultimately, have people around you that make you feel like you're in a real relationship. Like it's not a transaction. They're not always talking about charging you a certain amount of fees and here's how I get paid and all those different things. They should know about your family. They should know about the things that you do in your free time. They should know about the things that you aspire to be. If they're not getting to know you as a man or as a woman in your personal life, I think that's a red flag. And I think that's how you start weeding these advisors out. At the end of the day, reputable firms like UBS have some really amazing advisors. But there are some of our competitors that have some great advisors too. The difference that I think that athletes tend not to do more vetting is understanding really, does this person want to get to know me as a human? Do they understand my community? Do they know why I do the things that I do? Are they judgmental, or do they say some things that may be stereotypical, or you hear some of the biases and some of the answers that they give you? Look out for those things, right? At the end of the day, over time, advisors and people can't hide who they really are. And if you're patient enough, they'll show you if they're in your corner or really they're just out for the money.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's a really good point, for sure. Establishing that relationship, I think that's great. I think that's great advice. Speaking of that, I don't know if you saw that documentary years ago called Broke, Wale, kind of talking about athletes who file for bankruptcy. And there's an alarming stat in there that talks about after 2 years, 78% of NFL players either end up bankrupt or, placed under financial stress. And I'm kind of curious your thoughts on that. It's someone who was, in the locker room and you were there, and, what are the solutions, right, just moving forward
Well,
to curb that?
I think ultimately it's an alarming stat, but I think an attention grabbing stat. The truth of the matter is that I think
Right.
that what we should have is it should be 78% of athletes who don't, or NFL players who don't have a plan, go into financial distress, right? I think that's more realistic because the truth of the matter is majority of NFL players that play in the NFL have short careers.
Right.
So if you play for 3, 4 years, were you really just planning to have that be your income for the next 40, 50 years? No. You had to find some other streams of income. So again, if you're planning only to live off the 3, 4 years that you've made money in NFL, of course you're going to be in financial distress. So again,
Yeah.
statistics can be a little deceiving, but the truth of the matter is individuals who don't have a plan, a game plan on what's next, when this thing is all said and done, those are the ones that fall into those statistics. But I've seen, and especially for me, for myself, individuals that have a plan on what they're going to do after, whether it be philanthropic, whether it be, creating a family, whether it be creating a business, maybe going back into the workforce in some other capacity. Those individuals seem to do extremely well because some of the things we talked about earlier of
Right.
having the characteristics of good workers, great teammates, great leaders. If you have a plan and have all those characteristics in your back pocket, you will be successful when it's all said and done in football and the lights and cameras have faded. You'll have all the tools to make sure that you're successful.
I know, and it's interesting, and those stats are, I think over 20 years old, and I haven't seen the updated studies yet on where we're at, but I think we're in an interesting time, right? Of obviously people are still struggling, but I think you also have the modern athlete now, a part of this wave of athlete empowerment, right? Guys are equity partners and launching their own businesses and platforms. Like, how important is it in your mind for these high-profile individuals to sort of realize, they're CEOs of their own brand, right, and harnessing that power?
Listen, when I retired from the NFL, I think that's just when like Twitter and social media was just getting into the thick of
Right.
things. And and I looked at it and I was like, man, this is only going to last about 10, 15 minutes. But the truth of the matter is, this has become the highway and the televised revolution for athletes to see themselves as entrepreneurs and businessmen and businesswomen. And it's actually been really beneficial. You're seeing athletes look at the big picture. When I came up grew up, all I had was Magic Johnson and George Foreman, right? George Foreman had the George Foreman grill. And that was my only foray into seeing another athlete that's doing something on the business side. But now with everything that's going on in the tech space, in fashion, in any industry, the music, any industry that you're seeing that athletes, especially with the amount of money they're making on the field or on the court, they're able to now transition that and to think about alternative ways to invest. And you're seeing a revolution of athletes, and I don't want to say names, but you're seeing them being these conglomerates, and sports are just a fraction of what they've done, and it's really great to see. I mean, the modern day athlete, there's so many tools now to help you grow your business, grow your brand, and it's really imperative that these individuals surround themselves with the right individuals to help them grow that brand and their opportunities to generate some wealth.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a new age for sure. And
Sure.
for you, Wale, at UBS, just what's it like just for you building that division up from the ground up, and what's next for the good people over there at UBS?
I think for us, we just continue to build relationships, right? We've
Yeah.
got some amazing advisors that even before I got to UBS, this is what they did. They focused on relationships. We had some of the biggest contracts in baseball, football, basketball, all sports. And then one out of every two billionaires has some type of relationship with the firm. So that's a great combination, right, when it comes to managing wealth. Then you add my expertise and my experience with building relationships, with actually being in the trenches, understanding what a financial institution should do for athlete and entertainers. It's been a win-win. So these last 3.5, almost 4 years, we've been able to build something extremely credible, but more importantly, relational, right? We're not looking at it from a transactional standpoint, like I said earlier. And I think that has kind of been our secret sauce. And what I we want to call it a secret sauce, I would love, being a former athlete, that if our competitors see what we're doing at UBS and adapt that same model of making this relational, and our other competitors on this side do the same thing, we're really lifting up the industry of for athletes in the financial world, and you're going to not see those car crashes when it comes to athletes and their finances. You're actually going to see more of the not the fairy tales, but the amazing stories of individuals making more money when they get done with sports than they did while they played.
No, I love that for sure. Well, Wale, I appreciate your time, man. As always, it's always good to chat it up with you. There you have it, folks. Wale, former star on the field, making moves off the field. Thank you, man.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Boom.
Boom, boom.
Boom.